Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a fascinating show today. You know, so many people reach out to me at the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series, and they want to learn so much. They have such a thirst of knowledge for so many different spaces. And somebody reached out to me, a very high-powered entrepreneur actually, and said, hey, you know, I wanted to learn more about what's going on in the distillery space. Apparently, this is a very hot space right now. It's driven by technology. Of course, it's driven by what's going on online. So I've been able to go through my Rolodex and find a very interesting and unique entrepreneur. His name is Mr. Edgardo Zuniga, and he is the owner and founder of Twin Valley Distillers. And not only do we have Edgardo on the show today, but we've also been able to invite his associate, Tom Van Patten, and together they're really driving this Twin Valley distillery to amazing heights. They're the very first distillery to make bourbon in the state of Maryland since the Prohibition. It's a super exciting company. They've got so much going on. People love the flavor. They love the taste. They love the composition. It's really remarkable. Edgardo, first of all, let me welcome you to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you, Edgardo. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet to start the interview and just tell us a little bit about Twin Valley Distillers.
Well, Twin Valley Distillers actually was an idea actually behind me, which is my house. I started everything in the kitchen of my house by accident. Background used to be in culinary, used to be a chef. I was doing flavor alcohol in my kitchen, and one thing went to another one, an idea popped up to be able to open a distillery. It took me almost around 2 years of research, a lot of things in the kitchen of my house, and so we opened a distillery back in 2014. But the business was already in project between 2012 and 2013. And we have been in business for almost 7.5 years.
I love it. I love the entrepreneurial story. You're sitting at your house today because that's where it all started, when you started thinking about putting together this distillery. You're a master chef. You're a well-known chef, a culinary artist, if you will. And then you came up with this idea in your home about maybe starting, let's just say, the first, bourbon distillery in the state of Maryland since the Prohibition. It's really remarkable. One thing that really separates you from the pack is your handcraft bourbons and your handcraft spirits. Let's talk about that a little bit, Edgardo. How did you envision the way the company would be when you started 7 years ago?
Well, I put a kind of business plan in my head, what should I do my first 5 years, my second half, 5 years, before 10 years. I honestly never done alcohol in my life. I literally have to teach myself. I went to some distilleries. I asked some people questions. I paid some some people who are consultants and how everything is done. I did a lot of research online, paper, magazines, books. I did read. It was like going back to cooking school. A lot of reading, a lot of basics. Little by little, start making a distillery. I opened with making vodka and actually white rum or silver rum. And making bourbon was very difficult because bourbon, it have to be aged in new oak barrels. And at the time, it was not a lot of oak barrels for small craft distilleries. Barrels done, and by year 2 we were able to start aging in big barrels. We were buying 15-gallon barrels, 10-gallon barrels to age bourbons, and finally we were able to get bourbons aging. We moved from a 2,000 square footage warehouse where we used to do everything, and now we actually have total around 7,000 square footage. One is a rack house, one is a tasting. The other one is a production warehouse. So we have 3 warehouses in the same complex. Unfortunately, they're not connected next to each other. So we have to go to the parking lot, go into another one, go to another one. multiple kids. So we just moving forklift from one place to another one.
Edgardo, this is sort of a perfect entrepreneurial journey. You started small, you started to build, you have a little choppiness right now, but as you grow and as you continue to be the great success that you're experiencing, you get to then make decisions for your company with your team to make it even more streamlined and even better. And I know you're going online and through to other states in a very powerful way. And certainly we're going to talk to Tom about that. But Edgardo, I want to stay with you just for a minute because, you know, you've got a very interesting story. You immigrated from Costa Rica. Your ever expanding product line really brings the flavors. So how important is you to bring some of your hometown flavor to your spirits that you're currently producing right now in Maryland?
Well, I approach it like cooking. You know, when you cook, you're always trying to put your own spin on the food and culture. Yes, I'm from Costa Rica. My wife is actually from Jamaica. And the two of us, we have put things together, labels and names. And one thing that I actually do is one of her recipes, we do hibiscus or sorrel flavored rum, which is very popular. And the funny thing is she told me nobody's going to drink it, nobody's going to like it. And it's actually one of the number one flavor sellers that we have all year long. Bourbon, it was given. Technically, chef always want to do what they tell them. It's very difficult to do this. This is, sometimes you have to master this. So it's like when my mother told me, don't do this, and you always do it. So, everybody says bourbon have to come from Kentucky. Not necessarily. Bourbon is an American whiskey. It can be made anywhere in the United States as long as you follow the rules. We do. And then we became the first bourbon ever made in Maryland. Now there are a few other bourbons in Maryland, but we were the first ever made bourbon in Montgomery, in Maryland, and in Montgomery County. We're in a county that is a control county, the only county in the United States with a control ABC. We were the first distillery in this county in over a century, and the first distillery in Maryland ever make bourbon. When we opened, we became in the renaissance of the new kind of distilleries, and we are at this point the third oldest distillery in Maryland. Keep in mind, we started small. Some distilleries have a lot of, room, investors and everything. And this was mostly my wife and I as an investors. So we did everything. We still work. I work 7 days, 24 hours, and a lot of time. So I utilize my team to be able to help me. Tom actually has been keeping an eye on the distillery, doing the paperwork, keeping a lot of the paperwork low for me so I can emphasize in the production and the quality and everything, which I'm good at it. And then he's doing all the other part, and it takes me time to do it. So he's actually been helping me to be able to grow more production or increase production.
Edgardo, it's a great entrepreneurial story. You started in your house, you're a chef, you started, thinking about what it would look like to become a distiller back in your kitchen. You love the idea of bringing some of those flavors with you from your youth. And as you've grown as an entrepreneur, of course, you had to bring in a right-hand man, and you brought Tom Van Patten in. Tom, I want to bring you in now a little bit because I know there's some big things going on with some expansion at the distillery. So maybe, Tom, you could tell us about that because that's very exciting news, and a lot more people are going to be able to drink some of your wonderful spirits.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So in all throughout Maryland and the DC area right now, we're well known, well loved by our community, by our customers. We're in a lot of farmers markets as a craft distiller, and everybody there knows us. They recognize us. They enjoy our spirits. They say, "Hey, I've got a bottle of every single one of yours at home." But if you go to somebody in Arizona or North Dakota or someplace like that, they've probably never heard of us. And because we are a small operation, we're growing, but we are still small. So that's what we're working on right now, trying to get in new states. We're using direct consumer shipping so that people can go straight onto our website and order from us in the states where that's allowed. It's not all the states yet, but we're doing that, and we're partnering with some other, trying to partner with some other distribution partners to be able to take something that's so really quite popular here in Montgomery County and in Maryland, and introduce it to the rest of the country.
Tom, it's so exciting, because you and Edgardo and the rest of the team, you started local and you proved out the model. You've become sort of the connoisseurs, whiskey inside, at your state, going to the farmer markets. People love it so much. And then you said to yourself, and Edgardo decided, hey, let's expand this out and let's start getting this footprint out into a larger geographic location. So when you're doing that, Tom, what's the hardest part about that? Because entrepreneurs watching the show, they're going to be saying to themselves, wow, they've become like the favorite of the state, and now they want to expand out. What's the process as an entrepreneur to start expanding it so that other people start enjoying it as much as the people in your home state of Maryland do?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a lot of challenges. I think the biggest thing is that every single state is its own game. As Edgar phrased to me, it is 50 different countries within one country when it comes to all the rules and regulations, particularly around alcohol. So just finding out the various registrations and licenses and approvals and everything that we need to do in each state, and how vastly the laws can differ. It really takes a lot of time. Really have to have an eye on the details to make sure that we're going to be in accordance and doing everything on the up and up so that we can lawfully bring our amazing products to all over the country. So it's certainly a challenge there with all the various.
That's so fascinating, Tom. Entrepreneurs watching the show, that's something that Tom said that's very important. Each type of space, each type of business has its own unique challenges. And certainly, when you're not, let's say, in a space like alcohol, when you want to grow it and build it and go into other states and go internationally, you don't need to think about all the unique laws and regulations of every single state. But in the alcohol space, you need to do that. So that poses additional steps for the people in the alcohol space. So nothing's easy. But in terms of the product, Edgardo, I want to come back to you in terms of what you're putting out there, and in terms of the taste and the rabid fans you have about your whiskey. It's really remarkable. So it seems to me, Edgardo, that you've really finalized the taste palette of what you want to present to the public, and now it's just thinking about expanding. Is that what you're currently thinking right now, Edgardo?
Correct. I approaching this when I was working in the restaurant business. There are multiple types of restaurants. There are like gourmet restaurants. You have everyday restaurants, and then they have ethnic restaurants. Like Mexican, Peruvian, Chinese, stuff like that. But I used to work mostly in corporate America, which caters to everybody. And that's how I try to get these products. So products that you can cater to anyone and everyone. So just for the whiskey and bourbon connoisseurs who are really bourbon, fans, they want to just drink just what they call pure bourbon, single cask blends, all bourbons. We start making our own bourbons. We never cheated by buying 10 years old bourbons from all the distilleries and put it in a distillery is only 6 months old or 2 months old or 2 years old. So our bourbons, we started from small barrels, what they call baby barrels, into like much large barrels. Then we realized that by going to the farmers markets, Maryland is a small state, but it's very diverse. So we noticed that we could play with different types of flavors that cater to different parts of Maryland. And that's what we did. Literally get to know your customer, get to know who the clientele is, and see what they like. And you try. We have a lot of success in some of the flavors as well, and we have a few failures. I mean, we have some products that we make it once, twice, and they never move. So we finally realized, okay, the hint is don't ever make this again. But the ones they actually sell, they stick around. And some they're seasonal, and some they go all year long. Whiskey, bourbon is all year long. But there are a few flavors that we have. They're so very seasonal. When it's summer, spring, summer, and early fall, people drink it. But in the winter, they go back to whiskey and bourbons and dark liquor like rums. But is a big country. We can start going to some of the states that they are. We can deliver to them by mail. Will be great, and then little by little start going through distributors.
I love it, Edgardo. And this is really an amazing interview when you really think about it. For the people watching the show, you know, Edgardo is a wonderful entrepreneur. Here we are. He's on the porch of his home. The home is where he started thinking about the idea of this incredible distillery and this incredible bourbon that he wanted to make, and the whiskey. And this is an entrepreneurial story. You're looking at it live because right now, you know, we had scheduled Edgardo in to be at the office for the interview, but he had to run home because he had to handle some things at home. And then now he's going to go back to the office, and he's working 24 hours a day. And, you know, this is what entrepreneurs do. They're able to juggle things in a way that makes sense. And they're also able to handle potholes in the road, adversity. Edgardo mentions that sometimes they put a batch together and it just doesn't pass, you know, his sense of being a chef and his smell and his taste, and they put it back to the drawing board. And when they're done, they come out with the best of the best. And of course, that's what they're known for at Twin Valley Distillers. So for the entrepreneurs watching the show, seeing Edgardo on the porch of his home and hearing the story and knowing that it started there and knowing that he had to go home to do something at the house. And now he's going to go back to the distillery and go back and working with Tom about expanding the business. This is what entrepreneurship is all about. And Edgardo, I have to tell you, I'm very excited that I've gotten you on the show today, because I think in a year or two from now, you're not going to have any time for me anymore. You're going to be so busy and expanding and doing so wonderful. So that's great.
We always have time.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Thank you, Edgardo. Now let's jump to Tom. Tom, you've got a very important job here because you're the one leading the way on the expansion. You're the one that's looking at all the state rules and regulations. You're figuring out, can you ship it? You know, which distributors do you connect with? When you look at your job, your career, your relationship with Edgardo, you know, what's the single most important thing that gets you going in the morning as an entrepreneur as well, that's helping Edgardo build the business?
You know, I think one of the things is that I know I'm not going to come in and clock in and do the same exact thing day after day, that it is really quite a dynamic business, from the production side of things, where we're mashing or distilling or bottling something different every single day, to the more administrative side of things, where one day I'm, have to wait a few hours to connect with the people in Arizona, waiting for them to wake up, or trying to contact distributors in Delaware. You know, it's really it's exciting because it's new every single day, and it provides new challenges. And every single day I might finish a task and say, okay, well, that's good. There's a million more things for me to tackle. So we're always having opportunities to go down different avenues to try to expand the business.
It's very exciting as you're building it. Now, Edgardo, let me ask you a question, because obviously you mentioned sometimes, you know, you put together a new batch and maybe it, you know, doesn't meet your palate or meet, you know, what you're thinking you want to present to the public. So for the younger entrepreneurs watching the show, Edgardo, what are your thoughts about hitting a pothole in the road? You know, these younger entrepreneurs, they hit potholes in the road, they hit walls, they have tough times. What kind of advice can you give to the younger entrepreneurs who are hitting a pothole in the road on their entrepreneurial journey right now?
Well, we always do. But one thing I learned from my mistakes. You know, if you make a mistake, whether it's a $100 mistake or a $20,000 mistake, which we've done that already, learned, fix it, and try not to make it again. You know, when you hit the wall, yes, we have hit the walls a few times. Climb it. Find a way to climb the wall, or if you can, you know, or literally throw the wall down. I mean, it's one thing, you know, last year it was one of the toughest years for us. We had literally an epidemic in the beginning of 2020. And I look at the whole thing before United States completely shut down and the state of Maryland shut down, I already was working and making some hand sanitizer for my customers, thinking that it was going to be a 2 weeks or a month old issue. So we were the first distillery in Maryland putting hand sanitizer, and we were all over the media. I mean, find ways to able to take care of the business, because what happened is, one thing I tell my friends or my family is, like, you take care of your employees, they take care of you. We were able to save the business, so we were able to save everybody's job. Thomas came to work with us over a year and a half ago, before 2020, 2019. Then we have a hiccup in 2020. You know, a lot of people, a little thing happens. But then again, you know, just climb the wall, find a way in or a way through it, learn from the mistakes, and don't be afraid to make a mistake, because that's how it is. You know, we learn and we adapt.
I love it. That's great advice, Edgardo. I mean, really great advice. And obviously for the entrepreneurs watching the show, if you're not hitting those potholes, if you're not hitting those walls, if you're not hitting those hiccups, you're not pushing hard enough as an entrepreneur. That means that you're not just, you know, waking up every morning and putting it on the line. And, you know, when you put it on the line, Edgardo, it's so interesting, the journey, because 6-7 years ago, when you were in your kitchen as a master chef and a well-known culinary artist, you know, you decided that you wanted to step into this distillery business. And that must have been, you know, a little scary to begin with. But you mentioned your wife early on. You know, how important has that been to be surrounded by not only family, but great people like Tom at the business to move your business along?
Well, going for the beginning, a lot of people call me crazy. Even my family called me crazy. Even my wife called me crazy. But technically, when she saw the vision, and I actually took her to a distillery back in 2012, and she actually saw the vision, I was like, I see your point. But technically, my wife was able to support the house when I was actually jumping into, and that's a good partnership. So she has been very supporting in the business. But then again, now we are in the position that she says we need to make sure the distillery keeps growing, because it gets to the point that, you know, you cannot just hit a plateau. You need to keep growing. Even if you grow slowly, but keep growing. Slowly is fine as long as it's steady. But she actually has been a very good supporter. She financially helped me to be able to, you know, to quit my job and able to do a lot of the work that needs to be done. But, you know, I worked pretty much alone for almost 18 months. I have my first employee still works in the distillery. And actually, she's there today. She's actually came to bottle, because we're now going into the bottling busy season of the fall. So this is where now a lot of the staff, even Thomas, I even told Thomas, because he wants to, like, I can help. He said, finish that stuff. Don't worry. You will be getting your hands busy when we're going to hit full potential of bottling. And this is where a lot of times 3 to 4 people are just bottling nonstop. And we already have a assistant. Thomas, this is his first time being in the office. He's been with us in sales and everything, but this is now where he is going to see where production is all about. And I need the right people to be in the right places, and I see the potential of a lot of my staff. Some they have moved to other jobs, some they have stayed. Even when I was in the restaurant business, I always trying to see the potential of the people, so they can actually be a better person, better employee, better. Maybe they open their own business. So
I love it. It makes all the sense in the world. And what I'm hearing is you like to hire people that flat out get it done. You know, they have the get it done, I can do attitude. And that's one of the reasons why your distillery is doing so well and it's becoming so beloved in your local area, and soon to be, you know, in a nationwide footprint with the help of Tom and the other people at your company. It's very, very remarkable. I call it lightning in a bottle, gold in a bottle. People are raving about what you're what your palate has brought to the market with regard to this distillery and the bourbon that you're making, and it's really, really remarkable. And the whiskey, of course, is remarkable, especially the different flavors and tastes that you have based on sort of your background and experience and where you came from the Caribbean. So it's really, really awesome. Now, Tom, before I thank you for coming on the show, Tom, I wanted to ask you about what it's like working with Edgardo. When you think about it, Edgardo's the CEO, he's the founder, he's sort of the visionary, he's the entrepreneur. How meaningful is it for you, to come on board a year and a half ago and see this thing start to grow? And now you're saying to yourself, wow, if we can do A, B, and C and put, one foot in front of the other and get all the states lined up and get the wonderful product into these different states and then get it to a distributor, you're saying to yourself, well, I can kind of see this vision and it's remarkable. What's it like working with someone like Edgardo, who really is a visionary?
It's, I think it's just a lot of fun every single day. Edgar's always just, he comes in with such energy and he works, longer hours than any of us. And he always has such energy about it every single day with, we're going to do this thing. He's never just working on one task. He's always working on 4 or 5 different things at once. And he really encourages us to really, use our time as effectively to help with as many different, projects and, various avenues as possible. So it's, I think it's a lot of fun because every single new customer we have, every new farmers market or event that we go to, and we're meeting new people, and the expansion is slow. Like you said, it's slow, but it's constant. So it's fun to be part of something that's really on the rise.
I love it, and obviously, Tom. Before I move to Edgardo for my final question, I wanted to thank you for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. This has been a fascinating show about entrepreneurship and what you're doing. To have you and also Edgardo, it helps people understand what it takes to be not only a great entrepreneur, but put something in place that has legs, put something in place that can grow, build a minimal viable product, get raving fans like what you've done at Twin Valley Distillers in your local market. Everybody's talking about it. They can't get enough of it. You probably can't even bottle enough of it for the demand. And now you've got to figure out how to take it and go nationwide. So Tom, thank you so much for what you're doing. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about Twin Valley.
You're welcome. Now, Edgardo, I've got a final question for you. And again, let's just backtrack. You're here on your porch of your home. You started the business out of your kitchen. You had this idea. This is a great entrepreneurial journey. You surrounded yourself with talented people. You bring people on your team that are can-do people that will pitch in no matter where they need to pitch in, because that's what it's all about as a startup. And you've been able to build this to the point where not only do you have raving fans about what you're producing locally, but very soon, with Tom's help and the rest of the team's help and your leadership, you're going to be on a nationwide footprint, and people who enjoy bourbon, who enjoy this type of whiskey, are going to be enjoying your flavors that really have been developed throughout your years. And also you brought to the flavor some of your younger years when you were a young man in the Caribbean. So I wanted to ask you a final question, Edgardo. When we think about, entrepreneurship, and we think about what gets you up in the morning, because, I know you're getting up early, you're going to the distillery, you do whatever it takes. You probably even help bottle, you're tasting it, you're making sure that it passes, your chef's taste and smell with regard to what you want it to be before it goes out into the marketplace. What gets you up in the morning? What gets you going when you open your eyes and you're ready to roll and take that first step off that bed? What gets you going in the morning, Edgardo?
Well, there are many things that get me back in the morning. One thing is having a distillery. When I realized what I was able to open and I built, it is a legacy. is a living thing. Every business is a living thing, but you can have a restaurant. You're the restaurant in the neighborhood. You have, when you are in a factory, you can be in many places. Being in the food business, people come to your restaurant, eat a dish, and you cook. This one, you can bring your dish into every liquor store in the country, or different bars and restaurants in the country. Just putting a product that we make. I started, small, and it still is small, but compared to what we used to make, we make almost 10 times more than what we used to make in one day, what it used to take me a week to make. But just the idea of going to work, making alcohol is fun. That's the funny thing, is making alcohol. I even tell my staff, when the stills are coming out, I even teach them, this is how we smell the alcohol. This is how we taste the alcohol coming out of the still. And every time the alembic, so the still are dripping, the alcohol, it's like the first time, like, oh, this is cool, because I call it, it's liquid money falling into the drums. So it is, I don't know, I just enjoy it. I never done this in my life. Maybe in a previous life I was a moonshiner or something, but literally it is quite fun making alcohol. And believe it or not, I do not have a chemist degree. People down the street from here is NIH, and there are a bunch of chemists and people around here, and they're like, how in the hell did you do that? How did you manage to figure it out? I don't know. It's fun. Making alcohol is, whether you do it from grains or fruits or just sugar, water, it is fun. I mean, you go create something that, it motivates me every day to make.
Edgardo, it's absolutely unbelievable. Right as you were talking, a man came out of the house. He's doing some work in your house. That's why you had to rush home. This is really a great entrepreneurial story. I mean, it's really interesting when you think about it. And for the entrepreneurs watching the show, we all have these things that happen. You're working on your business, you're working hard, you have to run home, you have to go to school, you have to do this, you have to do that. I mean, it's really, really unbelievable. So this is what I would call one of my most genuine interviews with regard to an entrepreneur that's building something exciting, building something powerful, and handling it all. And that's what entrepreneurs do. You have to put on all the different hats as you're getting going and learn every facet of the business, and then bring people on that you can count on, like Tom and the rest of the staff. Edgardo, I want to welcome you to your new footprint into America with regard to what you're doing with the Twin Valley Distillers. I can't wait. I'm out in Arizona, out in San Francisco on assignment right now, and I can't wait till it travels across the country so we can try some of this wonderful bourbon and some of these wonderful spirits that you've produced and become very well known for. And I wanted to take a minute to thank you so much, Edgardo, for not only a fascinating interview, but for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series and letting people come inside your world as an entrepreneur to see what it takes to be successful. Really remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time.